Yeah, you can raise royalties off.
Good evening, it is 5:33. We are waiting on one more member, so that we could have quorum.
And who was that?
Pierce,
We want to call.
I already did. He said he's down the street.
Okay.
So we should be starting here shortly.
When you join, she's our intern. So did you talk to them about being the chair?
I have,
House for the.
yes.
Purpose or?
No, I didn't know there was.
Oh, okay. There was a need because apparently meetings. I don't know what.
I'm sure I know you're busy, but,
After.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great.
So I'll get you and I say, is this next?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Each
thank
thing.
you. All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to the Ward Two Neighborhood Advisory Board meeting. We are starting now at 5:38. If you would like to give public comment on today's agenda, please fill out the public comment form up front and return it to me. Thank you. Mr. Chair, it is 5:39. If you're ready to call the meeting to order.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. You want to do the call the roll first?
Yeah,
Yes.
how do you
Yeah,
turn
okay.
to the second page here, Kyle?
Huh?
Which is, if you want to turn to the second page, that's, will help you with the call to order roll call.
Right,
stuff.
okay.
Okay.
All right. Mimi Fuji Strickland, not present at this time. Hal Taylor,
Present,
Stacy Shin,
Here,
present via Zoom. Thank you. David Titzel,
Present.
Audrey Keller, not present at this time. Patrick Fisher,
Here.
Roman Schomburg, not present at this time. Stan Dowdy, not present at this time. Donna Keats, not present. Oh, sorry, thank you. And Pierce Donovan.
Present.
okay.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum of the Ward Two Neighborhood
Thank you.
Advisory Board.
Then we.
Thank you,
call
and
the staff.
I'll-
Before you keep going, call the staff members
Yes, we have Councilmember Dewar,
here.
our intern Abby, and Jennifer, staff liaison.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, so keep me straight tonight. All right. But I want to go ahead right now and thank everybody who comes, because if you've got something to say, this is the place to do it, give us information. But also, I think we're very, I think it's very important that members of the neighborhood get a sense of what's going on around the neighborhood. So the fact that you're here, you know, it expresses an interest in developments that are going on, and we appreciate that very much. So, all right, so we do have a provision for public comment at the beginning of the meeting. We will also have provision for public comment at the end of the meeting. Normally, public comment it has a 3-minute limitation on it. And that doesn't mean that you won't have the opportunity, once we get into matters which are on the agenda for discussion. You know, we tend, again, we're trying to get as much information as we can. So we will tend to involve people who have specific information on specific items which are on the agenda. I'll try to keep that somewhat under control, but the idea being that it's a relatively open meeting, so long as whatever you're talking about is generally useful to not only the NAB board, but also to other members of the public. So is there anybody here who, before we begin the rest of get into the regular agenda, anybody who anticipates doing public comments, sir? And I'm gonna ask, when you do that, please identify yourself, and also, you know, keep your voice up so we can all hear.
And Mr. Chair, if I could also inform our Zoom participants to raise their hand if they have public comment as well.
Okay,
And
You see?
also, if you could go up to that front corner, and that way the mic and the camera and everything can pick you up easy.
okay, great.
Up by the chair.
Thank you. And can I get your public comment form, please? Thank you. Thank you.
You are.
Our first public comment is Bill Shrimp. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. I really appreciate, Mr. Chair, I really appreciate your comments. And that's really what my public comment is for. And it's mostly for the members of this group. All of you in this group are familiar with the little white, yellow, and blue postcards that have to do with, hey, why are you here today? Something that I learned serving with Ward 1 NAB that I learned halfway through my term. I don't know if you do or don't know it, but the only people who receive those notices are the property owners. So if somebody is a lessee, whether they live in that property or they lease it commercially, the person who's leasing the property does not know about what you're talking about here today, tonight.
They don't know that it's on our agenda, is what
They
you're saying.
don't know it's on the
Right.
agenda. They don't know that it's going to the planning commission unless they see the big yellow sign there. And as most of you who are probably process oriented already know, By that time, the chance to get your 2 cents in may as well come and gone by then. The city of Reno is following the law. There's a Nevada revised statute that defines what they do, and the city is absolutely doing that. Although I'm not generally a government should do more kind of guy, I think in this case, what's going on in your neighborhood, I think the city can send a postcard to everybody who's a current resident within the 750 feet. That's a pretty simple, easy thing to do. I'm a realtor. I send so much junk mail. It is so easy.
I
to
noticed
do.
that, by the way.
It is so easy to do,
Yeah.
and it's not hard. And it's so easy. I know that, Councilwoman, we've talked about it previously. She's generally supportive. I know there's other things. But the reason I really bring it to you guys on the NAB is that when you send an email to the city manager, to the council person, to the mayors, say, hey, I'm from the NAB, it tends to get a little more attention. So maybe we can make this thing a little bit better and kind of drive a little more community engagement. So I hope that those of you in the NAB will.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that. You're right. Information that stays just in this room doesn't really do the whole neighborhood as much good as it can be. So I think we should all be aware of the need for general communication throughout the neighborhood. So thanks very much. All right. Any other public comments?
Are we allowed to ask questions of the comments? So is there anything else we can do? I mean, I'm concerned about it as well. So you're saying to write emails? to the
Are we gonna be able to
I,
hear this? Are they gonna be able to hear this? They are,
Yeah.
okay.
Can they see me?
We're okay, we're okay.
So I've corresponded with some city staff on it, and yes, they are following the law as required through Nevada revised statute. It is just a matter of will within the management of the city. Maybe a little push from the
Or maybe
council.
we could get the law changed.
Yeah, the law is an NRS. There is a session coming up, so that would definitely be an opportunity. But I think, just as a practical matter, of course, it's something that's pretty easy administrative change within the city. It's not hard to do. It's just a matter of frankly, not that much money because a postcard stamp is not expensive. And current occupant is a pretty easy database to maintain. So.
Okay.
And I'm
And there-
gonna add that I've advocated for this from the time I've been on council, and it will cost to developers, but as you point out, it's not significant. I mean, it's not hundreds of dollars. It might be $800.
Yeah.
But what it reminds me of is in voting, we a long time ago went from requiring people to be a property owner in order to vote to allowing everybody to vote, whether you own property or not. And when you realize that about half our residents in Reno rent, that means half the people are not engaged in their community. And I don't think we should discriminate against people because whether they rent or don't own property, they may own a property somewhere else, but be renting for now. Maybe they're moving or whatever, but I don't think that should cut them out of knowledge about the process. So we managed to do this when we did redistricting. It was not as simple as what Bill has laid out. For the city to obtain all the addresses and import them into our database. They did it for the redistricting. They wanted to make sure if you're getting redistricted, you vote. So you should know who your council member is, and you should know this process is going on. So they went through an extraordinary effort to reach out to every resident versus the development projects, which only reach out to property owners. So there you are. We'll terminate that for now, but if it's something you want to get involved in, talk to Bill after or later and send in a letter to council. That is the best way.
Right, and I think Bill brings up a good point too also, because it's one thing when we get all the addresses and everything together. And then a year down the line, now we need to get the information. Do we have to redo all the names and everything?
Not if we do occupant.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so thank you very much for doing it. Anybody else for the public comments in the beginning of the meeting?
And Mr. Chair, we do have public comment via Zoom from Ian Wilkins.
Okay. And
Maybe you could ask for the same,
Be on the system.
right there,
Well,
the yellow.
Can you unmute, please?
Ian, that's you. And you may have. to
Can
unmute.
I just type it in the chat?
Who is this?
Ian,
Ian? Yeah, you said, can you pipe in?
at the chat. Type in the chat.
Using the chat.
Oh, on the chat.
We recommend not. I don't think they record the chat. Usually they disable the chat, so could you just tell us what's on your mind?
Okay, I'm just curious about the homeless population and what we're going to do about it.
Okay. I don't think the NAB is in a position to answer, and neither am I in the moment, but you could send your comment to Reno Direct at reno.gov. Reno.gov, an email. And you could ask for an answer about what the city is doing to both help the homeless or change the dynamic, and someone will answer you.
Okay,
That works
thank
in
you.
that part of the field for the city.
all right.
Does that work?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
And you
thank
got
you.
the address? And they're gonna put it in the chat for you, the address of Reno Direct at reno.gov.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ian.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, we don't have any additional public comment at this time.
All right, thank you. Okay, next, approval of the agenda. Have we reviewed the agenda? Are we ready to, somebody ready to make a motion? Yea or nay? All right, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Alright.
Aye. I think we're there. Okay,
And
approved.
to ask all the NAB members, if you could turn around your name tag, that way, you know who you are, but
Yeah,
have some newer folks
all right.
running.
All right, the last meeting that we had was a very interesting meeting. I think it's one of the meetings that kind of shows what the NAB is about, because we were talking about proposals regarding where the tennis club used to be, and it was a very interesting, well-attended meeting. A good example of how people can come here and get additional information and make comments. But having said all that, we need to see if the minutes,
I think how you need to vote on the approval of the agenda. You have a motion and a second
right, on the minutes. Right.
Mr. Chair,
on the agenda first.
I do have a correction to the agenda. It's not necessarily a correction, but we will be listening to the development project first. And then the draft city of Reno public art master plan. So we're just switching the order.
Okay, so so give me numbers, A, through
So-
to
We'll be listening to C1 first and then B1,
C1, and then A, no,
then B1.
B1. Okay,
Thank you.
good, thank you. All right, if you had a chance to,
Well, first of all, I know you called for minutes, but maybe we could take a step back. If you could first get approval of the agenda with the changes.
with changes, with
Get a
regards, so we
motion,
had
second.
previously voted and accepted the agenda. There's now, our clerical, I'm sorry, our leaders, our clerical leaders have explained that we're gonna be taking these in a different order. And so that since we're doing that, I would ask for the agenda for someone to make a motion to amend it.
I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Okay, great. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Right, that's approved with the change.
Thank you.
All right,
And it's also helpful, just for practical, if you say your name and you're making a motion. And then
Yeah.
Nate will have a better job on the minutes.
yeah, exactly. Okay,
So, Mr. Chair, did you already vote on the minutes? I know that you started to go down that path, but if you could start again, that would be helpful.
with regards to the minutes, and again, it was a very interesting meeting. There's a lot of detail in here that I think it'd be useful for people to take a look at, including NAB members who, may need to review this. Because this is gonna come back before us in one form or another at some point. So let's make sure we're all up to speed on that. But having said all that, we have proposed amendments. Are there any proposed changes or corrections to the minute, to the minutes?
No.
No? All right, do we have a motion to approve the draft minutes as presented?
Dave Tinsel, for the record, I move that we approve the.
Boy, if you talk that softly during the whole meeting, I'm gonna be in trouble.
Dave Tinsel, for the record, I move that we approve the minutes.
All right, do we have a second?
Pierce Donovan, second.
Thank you. All right, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Our minutes are approved. All right, we want to go to the council liaison
Sure.
report?
Yeah.
This one?
Thank you, and hopefully everyone can hear me on Zoom. My name's Naomi Dewar. I'm the city council member for Ward 2. I explained last time, but I think it's worth repeating, that the Ward 2 boundaries have changed. We used to go from Moana Lane all the way down to Mount Rose Highway, taking in all of South Reno. We had 50 to 60,000 people. The city decided to add another ward, 6 wards. So we reduced the size of the wards. Now our ward's about 40,000 people, 40 to 45,000. And we go from about Neil Road roundabout over near Ranchera, you can actually look this up on a map if you just Google Reno Ward map. It'll bring you up a map. You have to zoom way in, but when you do, you'll see all the wards, and we're again Ward 2. We now go from about Neil Road all the way up to the river, south side of the river. And we now take in not only Lake Ridge and this area, but we also take in Collin Ranch, Old Southwest, and areas out to White Fir, which is out where Patagonia is, and a couple other developments out that way. I'll be trying to get around and maybe do some town hall meetings on some of these areas that I haven't represented before. I'm in my 3rd term as a city council member, so I've served 10 years. I have 2 years to go. We get 3 4-year terms. So I have 2 more years to go. Meanwhile, a new representative has been elected for South Reno area. Her name's Brandy Anderson. When my 2 years are up, there'll be election, and there'll be a new representative for the Ward 2 at that time. We are term limited, so no matter if I want to serve or don't want to serve, we're done. I wanted to update you since Hal spoke about the Lake Ridge Tennis Club development, now called Plumas redevelopment, is what it's now called. The planning commission approved it with no changes. Now, this body, there was a lot of conversation, as Hal said, this room was packed out with about, in total online and here, about 65 people participated. Many of those people made comments. A lot of the comments were about traffic. There's a lot of comments, if you remember, that the exit onto Lakeside should be a right out of it, because it's so close to the intersection. You would have to cross multiple lanes of traffic, cross traffic, make a turn. They did not make that change. Nobody at the planning commission, they may either didn't see your comment. It might have been brought up by public comment, but the planning commission did not make that change. As a result, possibly, there's been at least 1 appeal filed. It was yesterday. I don't know. I think they have till Wednesday. If anyone's listening, don't take that to the bank. It's 10 working days from the day after the meeting, essentially. It's really the day that the planning department puts out this certain report, which is usually the day after the meeting. I believe that day is probably Wednesday, this Wednesday,
This Wednesday.
I believe. I'm close. So I don't know if any other appeals will be filed. Last time this came up, 19 appeals were filed. There was so much concern. I don't know if there's less awareness or less concern. You know, they have reduced the number of it went from condos to apartments, and they reduced the total number of units by about 20. I'm averaging maybe 25. But it's still there, and so we will be taking it up at council. If some of your points were not addressed, I'm gonna ask you to resend them. And this is for everyone who participated, whether you're online or in the room, or listen later. We know that at least one person appealed it, so we'll be coming to city council, and so we have an opportunity to address some things at that point, if you feel strongly enough that they weren't addressed. And again, to my knowledge, they just approved the staff report as it stood. Okay. The second thing I wanted to mention is about the Lear Theater. So the Lear Theater is not in Ward 2. It's right across the street from Ward 2, essentially. Or close to right across the street from Ward 2, because it's on the north bank of the Truckee. We go to the south bank of the Truckee. Nevertheless, I'm the liaison to the Reno Historical Resources Commission personally, and we have Megan Berner here, who is our staff person in charge of that commission. And she's been working very hard. We got about $1 million of ARPA money, the federal rescue money, to work on the Lear. And we used some of that for a structures report, which was a critical first step. We used some of it to lay out some immediate improvements that we want to see done. We had to get all of those approved by the State Historic Preservation Office. They approved most of them. They added a lot of questions, but they didn't approve one of them, and it had to do with the fence around the Lear. But we all thought it was so important, and it has proven to be important. In fact, the current fence, because it is not a strong fence, was half of it was removed. So it just to the point why we pushed so hard to get a stronger fence. We asked for a wrought iron fence temporarily for 8 years till we could finish the renovation of the Lear. They finally did approve it. Myself and Megan participated in that hearing. We went back around October timeframe to request, go out to bid to put in this fence, to install irrigation and landscaping power, to repair the steps that are at the Lear, so that we could use the whole outside for things like Art Town, weddings, public meetings, people could rent it. However, nobody bid. Nobody bid. And it was about almost $850,000 worth of work. No one bid. There was a pre-bid conference. Some people acted like they were interested, but they didn't end up bidding. At that point, it was too late to go out for bid again. So what happened at the next council meeting was they reappropriated the money, the $825,000 roughly. And what that means is that we are further ahead than we were. We have the structures report. We have all of the contracting documents prepared. But I think our next steps, as proposed by the Historic Resources Commission, is to survey the public, survey existing rooms for rent, whether they're community rooms, performance rooms, whether they're under public ownership, private ownership, whatever. And so see what's available and see what the need and demand is, and then bring that back to council, come up with a plan. Are we going to build a performing arts center? Are we going to build a community center? And then begin a new fundraising campaign. The structures report estimated around $20–25 million to do this project, no matter what we build. And so even though we've lost $825,000, we still have to find $20–25 million. So it's a setback, but it's not a terminal event. In the end of January, I'm going to be putting out a call for all members of the public that would like to stay involved with this project. Not asking them to form a nonprofit, but I am asking them to get involved, find out what's going on, and help us raise the funds. That's, you know, be engaged, be involved, help us raise the money. So that's the Lear. And then the last thing I wanted to report on today before I take questions, we have been working for over a year on a wild horse fencing project. We're very successful. We got $500,000 of ARPA money. And that first phase of the fence is almost done. It's maybe 80% done. We just got approved at council for phase 2. We have funding. We were short about $30,000 and we're well on our way to getting that money. So I'm confident we're going to raise it. And in fact, on Friday, I'll be appearing before the Regional Transportation Commission, and I'll be asking for our missing funds. We got a commitment from the NDOT, which is the Nevada Department of Transportation, to give us $280,000 to help us finish this project. And they're going to be putting a cattle guard / horse guard cross Geiger grade They're gonna be fencing along Geiger Grade, so this is all NDOT work. We're gonna do it, they're gonna pay for it. But we still need additional funds even to that, so NDOT, you know, is our state road building company. We are gonna ask our local road building company, RTC, to help us out as well. And then we expect to have this done, I guess I'll say by next summer. A lot of cattle guards have to go in this phase, which take a fair amount of money. So that's the report on the fencing, and then I'll just open it for a few minutes to see if anybody has any questions.
Well, I do have a
You,
comment.
Hal?
And again, when I do this, obviously, I'm not doing it in terms of. This is a personal comment, okay, not representing NAB. One of my concerns on Lear, and it's been going on a long time. My
Right.
wife was on one of the committees
Sure.
years and years ago. My concern is if you read that article in the paper about what had been done and what they decided they needed to do and what they found with everything. I'm very concerned that people are gonna go, well, that's it, it's done. They may think it, in fact, is not going forward. It wasn't really strong enough. I thought it could have been stronger in terms of this is just one of the intermediate steps. So what I'm saying, and I'd like it to be included in the minutes, that if anybody knows anyone who has particular interest in the Lear and in the arts in this city, this is a long, ongoing project, and it's one of those projects that we can lose very quickly if people don't stay involved. So if you know anybody who would be interested in getting involved in this, tell them now's the time to step forward. I don't know who they would call at this point, but I'm just
Me.
saying,
I have had a person call me almost every single day for the last 2 weeks,
Yeah.
saying, I'm interested, I wanna be involved, I wanna help.
absolutely.
That's inspiring.
So that's what we need to do. People need to get involved, so we don't lose it, because it's.
Yeah.
They're all, I'm not gonna go in why, we need so much, but we need, it's not just history. It's art in and of itself. It's architectural art that really needs to be preserved. But a lot of people are gonna put a lot of time in to do it, and let's try to find those people and.
Well,
Yeah.
we've accomplished so many things. We've gotten it into our ownership. We've only owned the Lear for about 2 years.
Yeah.
We only just got the money. I mean, all that other time for 20 years has been 2 nonprofits and our town, so 3 nonprofits. We're the city, I think we have a better capability to execute on a project like this. And so maybe a nonprofit has a better ability to fundraise, I'm not sure, time will tell. But I am inspired by the fact that we did the Moana Pool. And the Moana Pool started with a nonprofit working for over 10 years. People said it will never be done, we could never get the money, but we did. And so I think we, on that project, proved the naysayers wrong. And that project is more than twice as expensive as this. That project was around $55 million. This is estimated at 20. 10 years ago, it was estimated at 10, and you know how much construction costs have gone up in the last 10 years between COVID, shortages of materials, et cetera. So yeah, it is an important, it was built in the 30s by a very famous architect who was the first Black architect in the American Institute of Architects. He has quite a following. I was just in LA, comes from LA. He was known as the architect to the stars. He built a lot of homes in LA and other buildings. A lot of those stars came up to Reno to get divorced or to perform at our various casinos. And because of that, he came along too. And he started building houses here as well as the church. So he's part of our fabric of our community, and the building has a storied career as a church, and we want to honor all that. So I would say, not just that Rome wasn't built in a day. I mean, I know that's just a standard quip, but Moana Pool wasn't built in a day either, nor our $70 million public safety center that we just built. So I'm an optimist, and I think it takes a very committed group of people and optimism to do these kind of projects.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Dave Tetzel for the record. Couple of questions. First of all, going back to the Plymouth development.
Yeah.
You had said, and I don't know if it was a misstatement, you said that they might not have seen the comments about the.
Well, and individually, maybe they didn't do a thorough read of their packet.
Does that happen?
I mean, I can't control what people read, right? I mean,
Right.
it happens, for sure.
Okay, so that was the planning commission, and that's an elected body.
And they would make the final decision unless someone appeals it. which
And
they
that's
did.
an elected body that makes that.
No, they're all appointed. Each council member appoints one person to the planning commission. They have 7 members, we have 7 members.
Yeah, okay, and then, going back to the Lear Theater, is there a constituency that wants to, dispose of that building, sell it?
Well, I mean, one of our own council members said she's not interested in going forward whatsoever. So there's not, the mayor and I were probably the most passionate. Some are neutral. One person said, well, we don't have the money. What's the point of talking about it? But the reason that I recommended that Doug Thornley, our previous manager, buy it was that just like the Moana pool, we had it, it was in place since the 1900s. It was demolished in 2007. And it took us from 2007 to 2024 to get the money together and rebuild it. So for me, these kind of projects take a long time. Virginia Street Bridge, I started working on that in 2005. And then it was built in 2016, 11 years. Okay, so my experience has been that these kind of big, complicated public projects are gonna take on the order of 10 to 20 years.
Oh, for sure.
That's just how it goes. You know, we've gotta be, have the ability to stay the course.
I guess my question is, because there was some, it seemed like there was some council members that kind of wanted to sell it. I was wondering.
Yeah.
Your read on it. Is there a constituency in Reno that just wants to dump this? Because I agree with you. It's gonna take a long time and a commitment, but I think it is a treasure to the city. I think it'd be a shame if they got rid of it. So I'm asking if you think there's a constituency that wants to
Yes,
dispose of it.
like everything, like any money we put in that means something else we're not doing, right? There's no free lunch and it's a zero-sum game. We're not creating money. And we're headed for some 2 very challenging years budget-wise, there's no question. We already had some previous, this last fiscal year, we had some awareness that we were heading into dire times. On December 2nd, the state, I forget the official name, but they're the ones who analyzed the whole financial status of the state. And they projected for this year statewide, of 0 improvement or increase in money, 0. Next year, they projected 2% increase, and the next year 2.7. And the state legislature has to live with what they say, so they make, it's an interesting body of financial experts. And so they can't make a budget that goes beyond like last year's budget, because they said it's 0, there's 0 increase. Yeah,
So the city counts on the state to pay their budget?
the state makes the budget for everyone, and including most importantly, the education budgets. And my point here is that they just got notice that the state personnel retirement system had their biggest increase ever. It just came out. It was over, I want to say 3% increase. And that is shared between the city's employees and the city. We pay half, we each pay half. So every time there's an increase, if it's 1%, we would pay 0.5%, they'd be, an employee would pay 0.5%. So we're headed for tough times. So we just looked at it today. You know, we're not meeting what we projected for our revenue. So there's gonna have to be cutbacks. There's no question. So it's not like the city has spare change in their pocket. It's gonna come out for the Lear.
Right, I guess I'm wondering why the city can't pay its own bills, you know, so it sounds like we're not financially,
Well,
as a city, we can't pay for necessity.
well, I'll give you one answer and then we do need to move on. So the city, the whole entire state of Nevada has a very unique situation. That's the only state that does this, is we depreciate our real estate from the time a house is built. Every year, so you have 2 parts, you have the land and you have the building. Every year, the land is evaluated and every year the building is evaluated. And the building is presumed to be worth 2% less than it was the year before. It's not based on what you could sell it on the market. It is based on its initial price, and every year it goes down 2% roughly. And then at, what is it, 22 and a half years, it basically is zeroed out. And so now you're only paying taxes on your land. This is a crazy system.
That sounds like it's a problem.
There's been proposals to change it at the legislature and do what they call a reset. So when your house would sell, it would reset back to what you bought it for. And then it would start the depreciation. No one's saying do away with it. They're saying modify. It has not passed. And that is where we stand. And that's a big chunk. It's our second largest revenue input. The first is something called C-tax. It's a combination of your sales tax, your franchise, your cigarette tax, your gas tax. All of these other taxes are bundled up and then redistributed to the two cities, Reno and Sparks, and the county for Washoe County. And that's problematic too, but I don't have all the time today to go into that. But our financial story is much different than if anybody moved here from California or any other state, really. It is nothing like those states. And there's one other piece of this, which I will say in my out loud voice, which is a lot of people have heard of home rule. Has anybody heard of home rule here? You know what that is? That means a city has independent authority on raising taxes, on initiating programs, and doing what they think they need to do. We have something called Dillon's Rule. Dillon's Rule means that the legislature is like our parents. We are the children, and we cannot make a move without the legislature blessing it. Our very own charter, which is how the cities run, has to be approved by the legislature. We don't have what would you call it? Expression or the ability to change things ourselves. The legislature has to decide. So that's why these discussions are occurring at the legislature. I don't know how many states have home rule versus Dillon Rule, but I will tell you, as a city council member, it puts handcuffs on us as to what we can do. There's just no question about it. So I'll leave
And
my,
we only meet every 2 years, which makes it even worse.
they only meet every 2 years, which they're not even thinking about it on the alternate year. And so things come very slowly. And this is one thing they haven't been willing to change, either home rule or depreciation. So we'll leave it at that. You bet.
All right.
Hopefully I explained it clearly
Yes,
enough.
Great.
That explains a lot.
All right.
Yes.
Any other questions? That you want to bring up this time?
One question.
Yeah,
To appeal the planning commission decision, who has standing to do that?
so very broad standing. Our city council and our lawyers have said very broad standing, and if it would actually go to court, they would argue about standing there. So they allow virtually anyone to appeal. I mean, you may get to court, and at the court, they may say, well, you live 10 miles away from this development, you don't even drive on McCarran, really, how are you affected?
Yeah.
But at this level, at the city level,
City level.
they're going to accept pretty much all appeals and not throw people out.
So it's just a process thing at that point.
But we do have to make, and we don't even, they used to have us vote on standing. And standing means who has the right to appeal something. They used to make us vote on it before we take up the case, and now they decided it actually hurts them. So we don't vote on it anymore.
Thank you.
All right.
Any other questions? Was there one more? Somebody?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right. Okay. Do you do your liaison report now,
Yes.
please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jennifer Alvarez, Community Liaison for the record. I just wanted to let the body know that the menorah lighting will occur on December 25th at 5 p.m. at the Reno City Plaza. And our next Ward 2 NAB meeting is on January 21st, 2025. And that is all I have.
Thank you. All right, so am I right that C1 would then be our next item?
That's correct.
So C1, LDC 25-00018. Mount Rose Street Junction Master Plan Amendment and Specific Plan District. Again, this is for discussion only. We will not be voting on this, for discussion and information.
Well, what you'll be doing is, you're not voting on the development, but what you're doing at the NAB, and everyone in the public is encouraged to as well, is you're writing down comments for the planning commission to consider when this goes to the planning commission.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Okay, so how are we gonna go? You're the guy?
Do I have a beeper or you're gonna do it for me?
I will do it.
You're okay. I had some animation, so we'll see how this works, but I
Alright.
have full control.
You might want to identify yourself.
You bet. My name is Brooke Oswald. I am with the Rec Group. 40 days, a zoning map and a master plan amendment. Just want to say, these are very high level sort of approvals. We're looking at 50,000, 20,000 foot. These are really setting those big goals of what we want and then setting those standards and requirements. So we're not going to see specifically down to a site level design at this point. We're really just setting those guardrails and rules on this.
When would they see that?
That would come forward that you'd see through building permits, or if it did require additional.
Do you need a tentative map, in other words?
If you were to do it, so what this zoning is gonna allow is a multiple, it's gonna allow some of your neighborhood commercial uses, it's gonna allow some multifamily, it could allow some single family detached, attached. So it allows a number of things, and so each one of those would require a tentative map if you were going to do a for sale product, right? Where you, and if you had over more than four, would require a tentative map.
Okay,
That would be back in front of this.
come back here.
That here, and then you'd see that going to the planning commission, and then with a tentative map, that would be an appeal to go to the city council.
And both of these have to go to the city council, the zoning map. and
Yeah.
the master.
You bet. So this is really the first level. So we're here tonight really to get that feedback back. So we also, so there's an initial letter that goes out that the city sends out. We send out 300 flyers to the neighborhood by ourselves, notifying them of this event tonight, because we want to get that feedback early and we want to make sure we're getting that. And then additionally, the adjacent property owners, we sent private letters to. And, you know, identified ourselves and, you know, to please reach out as we go forward and making sure that we're reaching out. So we're trying to do as much of that as we can. We did know early on, this used to be Ward 1. This is one of those ward change areas. This became Ward 2. So we did reach out to Councilmember Dorr very early on in this process, prior to even it becoming Ward 1.
Yeah.
Knowing that it would be heard, that we'd be turning it in. And we went to the site, had coffee and just discussed sort of the thoughts that were going. This is the special zoning, this is gonna be a specific plan district, it's really, unique, and we came at this of really working with city staff and the, planning manager to find something that was appropriate that we could move through, but would provide these guide rails and oversight as we went through this
So
process.
this is an SPD.
This is an SPD.
So I don't know if you guys have dealt with them, but think you have dealt with PUDs, planned unit developments, they're generally bigger. We brought back the SPD about a year and 2 years ago, so that when, even if you have a smaller site, you can plan it thoroughly enough that people understand what's going on. So even though you said these are high level,
Mhm.
the SPD is what you're doing as the zoning, right?
Sure, we're
So
really
it is
setting those
supposed to be-
standards and requirements,
It
yep.
is supposed to be pretty detailed.
Detailed in that it would be similar to our Title 18 of how is it gonna be, if you're gonna build this, how will it be built, right?
Well, the reason I'm saying is like, this body has experience with, there was an SPD done on just a 5 acres, near Virginia Lake. And they were very specific, right down to the articulation, the color of the buildings, whether they're townhomes or apartments and all of that. I mean, I know that Donna was very involved in that one. That was with, Ken Crater.
And we're setting some standards, but we're still taking it as zoning so that it does offer the flexibility to move to different products as the economics change or different things change.
Okay.
Or, and really to efficiently use the site, right, of what it wants to be. Next slide, please. Whoops, go back one more slide. Okay, so just the team on this, we have Park Real Estate Partners, that's George Graham. He came out and met with Council Dorr and myself. Odyssey, Gabe's here tonight, he's the engineering. Mack and Associates, that's Mike McGonigal. I've worked with Mike for years when I was at the city. He is mastered in infill development and architecture. And then I am a rep planning group. Next slide. So really looking at that context and location, the blue line you're seeing is Plumas. Just up here, this is the Mount Rose Junction with Plumas.
And then
We're looking at a 1 acre site in here. This is an infill site. This is a really unique opportunity, unique site. You don't often see these in this area.
can you tell us what those roads are?
Sure, yeah, this is Plumas and this is Mount Rose Highway, or Mount Rose, sorry, not
Street.
Highway, street. So, and uses, this is a really kind of an amazing area of neighborhood commercial that we see here. We have a coffee shop, a convenience store, we have personal services, we have offices, we have restaurants. They're really a great little neighborhood group of things. And that's part of our decision why, as I'll go a little bit further, why we chose kind of our base zoning on that. Looking at some of our other surrounding uses, we're seeing some single family homes to this side. A lot of these are converted and are being used as rental or multifamily. As I said, we have our commercial that kind of runs the outside border. And then additionally, we're seeing some of those single family houses across Plymouth Street.
And could you tell us some of the stores, like I know Coffee Bar,
Yeah, we've
7-Eleven?
got Coffee Bar, I think we've got 7-Eleven. There's also a couple, I think there's a pizza restaurant in here. I think we have a barber, a beautician. I think Drakovich, there's some offices, and we're seeing some other commercial uses along there. A hair salon.
What's there, Plumas and Mount Rose, the two blue ones?
Right here.
Yeah, what are those two?
Those are, offices. It's the unique kind of spiral building you see on there. Spire has a spire that's owned by the Drakoviches, and I believe they run some offices. I think they do some co-working space out of there also.
Yeah, the
And
corners.
what's in the area now where your pink box is?
That is it's vacant land. And I'll go into that, I'll go more site specific so we can look at that and go a little bit deeper. We do have public, transportation down Plumas. We've got two, bus lines that run there. And then just down on Virginia, we've got our bus rapid transit that runs. This is really a great sort of connection into those downtown hubs and all the way back out to our transit station there. Our parks and schools are really pretty established through this area, Virginia Lake, the Washoe Golf Course. We're seeing even down to we're fairly close down to the river at this point. And those schools that we see, the local elementaries, and we also have some charter schools and other sort of opportunities for education in that area. Next slide, please. So now we're looking at the site itself. As you can see, it's a vacant site. If you go out to the site now, it's vacant. It is fenced to sort of deter any unwanted activities on that site. But it does really, as you can see, a lot of the parcels are very small. This is a really unique opportunity that we have a larger parcel that's been assembled and is vacant. And so it really lends itself to fully utilize and look at how infill and what we do at this site.
And did you say it's 1 acre or?
It is 1 acre. It's a 1 acre site. Our access comes off Plumas. You've got your infrastructure, your services are all there because it is that infill. It is considered for our master plan in our neighborhood. So your sewer, water, utilities are all there. Your fire service, police service are already sort of enabled in this area. And as I mentioned, just our adjacent uses, again, looking at those commercial uses and some residential uses down to the south. Next slide, please. So-
You can see a tighter map of this in your materials.
So, looking at that master plan sustainability, these are those high level documents, really, who do we want to be and what are we and how are we moving? I had the unique opportunity with the city to work on both of these documents, so I know them well. Those things that we're looking at in that master plan is that resilient economy, well-managed growth, vibrant neighborhood centers, safe, healthy and inclusive community. We're looking at that, promotion of infill development, walkability, some of those other things. And then sustainability and action plan, you'll see that the SPD offered us a unique opportunity. We do in Title 18 right now have a placeholder for sustainability, but we don't have anything. And so we've kind of taken a step to include that within our SPD and start to look at how we can move forward development and some of the things that can happen on that. As we look at this, it looks like it didn't slide in as the permit slide. So the current under that is a multifamily master plan. What we would like to do is go to the suburban mixed use, which has all those pinks around it are that related suburban mixed use. So really moving that sort of same concept and those underlying uses across the 1 acre site. Next slide. So looking at the zoning amendment request, so we have our master plan. Now we're gonna look at our zoning. Our zoning is really gonna set, that's the master plan being why we do things. This is really how we do things. So this is gonna be our standards and our requirements and all of those. So as you can see, we've got a mix of zoning districts around here. The current site, once again, this was animated, underneath that is MF 14. So we have an MF 14 zoning. What we're proposing is coming in and doing that specific plan district. So specific plan district, you start with the base zoning, and then you can add or take away conditions, requirements, uses, modify setbacks, heights. You can do all of that through this document. So our initial document here is that Title 18. That is our land development code. We have put together the Mount Rose Junction. So those two work together to help form how development would go moving forward. As I was saying, there's a lot of benefits to that specific plan. It can really be tailored to the site and we can really look at what's important to the site. What we've come in and is used is the neighborhood commercial zoning base plan. Where we're seeing this is a professional office, this is a multifamily and another professional office. Even though this is zoned multifamily, it's currently being used as an office. So the use itself is really office along there. We've come in with the neighborhood commercial, which is very similar to the sites that you see just up a little bit higher. And really once again, that SPD allows us to really modify that base zoning to hopefully protect those properties, enhance what can be done, and also fully utilize that parcel. And use a lot, as I was saying, it's a very unique parcel, and so being able to utilize it as we move, and develop it. And that's really looking at that efficiency of land. The more that we can use our inner land and our infill land more efficiently, that helps preserve those outheld foothills and some of those other things that we're seeing pressure on. Next slide, please. So this is just our group again. I hope that kind of from a high level helps you get there. We are working on staff. So staff is providing comments and we're working back, and we're really trying to take, as I said, we're trying to get that input very early so we can start to modify that handbook to really cater itself to the neighborhood and the needs that we see. So that's where we are. We would, and then going through this, what we would see next, we have our NAB. Planning Commission, we're looking at January, February, the Planning Commission. Then usually it's a month and a half after we would be at the City Council. We have two things going on here. We have our master plan, which would be adopted by resolution. And then the zoning is adopted by ordinance. Ordinance takes two shots. So you'd see that at City Council twice. That master plan then goes to our regional, which is another public hearing to make sure that it conforms with the regional plan and how that would be regionally looked at. We have received comment from them, and at this point, they don't have any issues with how we are requesting to modify the master plan. So I guess what I'm saying there are a lot more opportunities to be involved and, have your voice in this.
So is this basically to set the guardrails of, the development
Yeah.
of that?
Exactly. So the neighborhood commercial allows a lot of those similar uses that you're seeing around there. It also allows some multifamily, some other things. We put some guide rails in the neighborhood commercial. Doesn't have a cap on density. We're capping density. We're some of the other sustainability. We have a whole sustainability section. So we're adding EV chargers are going to be required. We have native landscapes going to be used. We have water efficiency and making sure we're meeting in our water. We have low VOC paints and interior stuff. So we have a number of things we're doing in that. We also have a requirement for a certain amount of our site to be permeable so that you actually are absorbing that water back into the site. So we're taking that little extra step to try to push and help to set some sort of guidelines of how we may look at sustainability or development as we move forward.
What are you guys looking at doing?
They're really, like, as I said, this could be, some small neighborhood commercial. We could see it coming into an attached townhome product. You could see multifamily. You could see a combination of live work, potential situation where you had architecture offices where someone lived there. So right now, we're trying to leave it open so they can kind of look at the market. As we know, markets have kind of shift. They're continuing to shift as we're seeing interest rates and some other things happen. So, but one of the things we're really excited about, we have sort of this push for infill really being pushed from the council level and how we use that land that we have interior. And so we think this is a great opportunity to help support some of those larger strategic goals of the council.
Let me tell the public, you'll be able to ask questions at our chair's option, either during or after, and I don't know if you have a preference. They're raising their hands now.
As long as we don't get into a long discussion, because we've got other things on the agenda, I think it's good to get specific information while we're all listening to
Yeah.
the facts now.
So
that's why
he's planning to come to you after? Okay.
No.
And I'm also available. I don't have it up here, and I'm working, I have an IT with my email and my website right now. I'm trying to get sorted, but I'll give you my personal phone number, or my personal email is Brooklyn, BROOKLYN .Oswald, OSWALD @gmail.com. And please feel free to write me if you have concerns or want more information or anything.
So that was it. That's your presentation.
Yeah, that's really,
Okay.
we're currently I don't wanna get too much in the standards, cause we're really working on, we wanna get that feedback, so, I don't wanna say we're doing this when, maybe someone comes up with a better idea, or we wanna make sure
So
we're getting
Mr.
that
Chair, you
feedback.
might want to start with the NAV and then expand to the audience.
Okay, so I think you probably want to,
Donna Keats for the record. As always, great presentation.
Thank you, Donna.
I went recently to see, the last time I looked at your proposal online, that was in November. And I read what you got on the table there. I thought it was very well written, yet I had no clue what you were talking about doing on this property. So. That's kind
And
of
I
what
think the
you're saying.
developer's not quite, they're
Right,
really
so-
looking at the market and what's gonna be the best use of that
So I'm
property.
giving some feedback.
Okay, perfect.
Is that one of the things that you said in your development proposal was, full use of, full range of uses. Envision the proposed SMU master plan amendment, which includes commercial, residential, and civic uses. That really sounds great, and greater flexibility to incorporate residential and commercial. You've only got an acre. Right? So I'm kind of not, it's like written like this big broad brush thing, but you really just got an acre. Tentative map that's been approved for the site already with what, 17 townhomes,
17,
I think,
correct.
and even at that, there was a traffic issue from Plymouth. I mean, coming in and out, at least a lot of people spoke to that issue from the access point of view. So I'm kind of wondering how you can possibly have an acre with no intent and just pick up everything out of Title 18 that you can fit in neighborhood commercial,
I
which
mean, I'm gonna cut to the chase here too for Donna,
Mhm.
meaning, why wouldn't you just do zoning? If you don't know what's going on the site, why would you do an SP?
Well, because, we're looking at it, so we started with neighborhood commercial, there's uses like, a car, dealer, or not a dealership, but like, there's some uses that we can restrict. We can also, what's that?
Today, it's MF 14.
It currently is MF 14.
So that is just for everybody, 14 units to the acre.
Correct.
You
you
said there
get
was a,
30 with neighborhood commercial.
right, but I didn't hear him say they're changing it to neighborhood commercial.
That's what they're trying to do.
Is that what you're doing?
So an SPD requires a base zoning, so we have to pick one zoning to start with, and then we can modify that.
So what
zoning.
is- that's-
So we picked the neighborhood commercial, and that was kind of working with city staff to determine what was gonna be
So
appropriate.
you could do it.
Looking at
you can
MF
place there.
MF 30 and neighborhood commercial. Being that it's sort of a neighborhood commercial center, we're really looking that the property owner wanted the opportunity, if the market was there, to further enhance that commercial, or looking at that.
But I guess what I'm saying, Brooke, is why wouldn't you just do neighborhood commercial? Like, I've never seen a SPD that doesn't propose a something.
Well, I think there's a few, once again, it's those guardrails. We're able to add the sustainability. And through working with staff, they really felt it was a zoning that we could really tailor to the neighborhood itself instead of just a flat neighborhood commercial.
So what are you adding then?
Like I said, we have the sustainability,
So what does that mean? Does it mean everything solar?
There's requirements that we'll have on that. We have, set some other standards of restricting some uses that are allowed in neighborhood commercial that we
Okay.
don't think are appropriate. We are looking at the modification of some of the setbacks, potential heights, and like I
Well,
said,
it'd be
we're
good
working
to
with
set
staff
through
with.
this group what those things are so they can comment on. it.
Well, why I want to be careful on that is that we are working with staff and they have their comments, and so I don't want to say it's this or this. I mean, if someone thinks, hey, you should set back further, or hey, we would like to see, that's what we'd like to do now, and then we can work with staff to determine what's appropriate.
Okay, I can comment on that.
Yeah,
When you got the neighborhood commercial, I don't particularly, since your front is gonna be a driveway off of Plymouth. Bulk of the buildings are gonna be probably in a U with the corridor up the middle or something like that. so-
what I'd anticipate, we'd probably see parking to the south, which is up against that residential,
Okay.
and we'd probably see our building more towards that commercial side,
Okay.
right? So you'd see your height, so.
Okay,
And
so,
we really think that's sort of appropriate, and that's gonna just lay out by just access, because that access
Yeah.
is gonna have to be pulled back away from the intersection and the line. And so we already kind of see a natural protection just in where we're coming in. So we'd see no structures up against the residential, really structures
Okay.
would be up against the neighborhood.
well, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
And I was gonna say that like the 0-foot setback side and rear in neighborhood commercial is a little tight when you've got 1-story residential on, I think, 2 sides and 1.5 story.
Yeah, and we didn't go
Office
with that, we
spaces.
didn't go with any zeros, so we're really
We got
kind of
the
pulling,
zeros.
we're
That's what
pulling
I'm
back,
saying.
we don't think zero is appropriate.
But
in
how are you
this situation.
modifying it in a way that will actually make it, I mean, it'd be cute to have a little neighborhood center there.
Uh-huh.
And maybe some would work, with some people could live up top and a cute little commercial thing, I mean, that would be a really cute idea. But all these things that come through that are dependent on market conditions. The default move can always be to put a 3-story, 30 unit per acre residential multifamily in there, which is totally non,
Congruent.
thank you, incongruent with every neighbor on every side, including the commercial people, but that would be allowed, so.
And how tall are you? maxed out?
We currently came in at 45 feet. Staff has had some concerns. We understand those and we're, kind of looking to determine what's appropriate. So we would probably come.
Gives you 35.
And we-
So you're
and so we've modified, there's a modification that we came in. So we have a number of modifications. We're willing to come, like I said, we're here for comments and to
Use the
get back.
SPD to increase the height. If you just went with neighborhood commercial, you'd be limited to
It's
35.
35. And
But
what
these are things
45
that
is similar
you say,
to an FF.
I think for them to get
Yeah.
a better feeling for what you're planning. So you're saying, one of
Well-
our exceptions would be to go to 45.
But with staff, we're already saying, we understand that and we're
They
gonna
said
start to
no.
reduce. Well, they didn't say no, but
Oh.
they said we have a concern and we said, we understand that. And so we do think we'll probably see more in the neighborhood. Commercial of 35 feet is where we come down.
3 stories is a bit much, right behind that, you've got that 2-story house on Plymouth. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
the-
I think adjacently you're seeing the Dracula and some of those, with
Yeah.
the sphere, those are sitting up around 3 stories. We are
Yeah,
starting to
that's
see
the
some height
tourists.
towards the corner, yeah, with the tourists. Yep.
Because they're block buildings.
Maybe move on?
Yes.
I guess I have one more question,
Uh-huh.
Dave Titzel for the record. It seems like if you want to get real feedback from the community, you need to be more transparent with what you're proposing.
Well-
So, I mean, like this, just make it clear.
The
We're
documents
looking
are
to-
available online. It's all available for the public to see and they have access to this. So
Oh,
they're
okay.
able to read it and see. We're not trying to hide anything. It's all there for the public to see. It's just really hard to cram a document into a 10-minute presentation. Everything's done. And like I said, it's still really a living and working document. We're trying to figure out what's appropriate.
Are you gonna come back then when you have some more?
I know we'll be
things
going
to go?
as we go, but what we want now is your feedback so that we can start to incorporate that into, when we go to planning commission, which I think you said, these comments go to the planning commission. We'll also want to make sure we're working, and staff also sees them, and we'll be working with staff to say, no, we understand that, and we can, what if we modify this, or
Well,
what if we do that?
I'm just gonna summarize. I think what I'm hearing from the NAB is they'd like you to make a 15-minute presentation and provide more specificity. Because most people haven't had the chance to read the staff report and
Well, there is no staff report. I mean, there's the handbook.
or the
Wait,
application.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna sort of stop at this.
Okay.
Here's the problem. We look at a lot of projects here,
Mhm.
okay? Some people come in with great presentations, lots of detail, because they're ready to do that. Some people don't. We have certain experience. We spent a lot of time in the last year, for instance, looking at transportation within, for instance, housing units, that kind of thing. But we start off with the premise of, more detail. I understand you don't have all this locked in. But it's hard for us to help you and to help our neighborhoods with so little detail. And I know you're not doing it because you're not
We're
being
not trying to hide
transparent.
anything.
I know you're not there at that point. But I just want you to understand
Mhm.
what we see a lot of and what we're prepared, because we see a lot of this, to help you with if we can.
No, that makes sense.
So having said that, are the people involved in this project, are they involved in other projects around the city?
Yeah, George is originally from New York. He's kind of fallen in love with Reno. He's come out and he's doing a number of infill projects around town.
Well, that means what? What kinds of projects?
He's done some multifamily projects. He's currently purchasing some other land and moving through that. He was originally looking at this site as a tentative map, so that would be a for sale product. So it really kind of depends on the land and the need for that, so.
Well, and do you have anybody else involved in the project at your level right now who has projects within the city, so we get a sense of what they like to do in this.
Sure, you know,
kind
Mike,
of
Mike,
environment.
Mike McGonagall's done a number, I mean, Gabe works on projects all over town and I do also. So I mean, I've worked on thousands of acres down to, you know, smaller lot sizes throughout my career. So, you know, it's,
Hey,
once again, we're not trying, by inviting everyone and everyone here, we're not trying to hide anything. We really, and it's hard to give the level of detail until we get a little bit of feedback and say, oh, no, the neighborhood thinks this is important or that's important. That's really what we're trying
Hey,
to
Al,
do.
I know you can't see it, but we have a public comment.
Yep.
We have a public comment request. I know you can't see him, that's why I'm just interrupting you for a second.
Thank you. For the record, I'm Bill Shrimp. The reason I'm here is because previously when this lot, it's already been through a NAB and it's already been through planning commission. I was on the NAB at that point and followed through the planning commission. I'm gonna make assumptions and read between the lines. It seems like it's, the applicant's probably gonna look at doing some sort of commercial thing, maybe someone like Donna was talking about. In the experience working with this, a little bit with this particular applicant, and I did go look at one of his other properties in town. It was a nice property. The developer, it was a nice place. It was a good job. So he had done well, in my opinion, over there. The previous project, it did go through the NAP, did get to planning commission. I want to say they went as far as traffic study. They went as far as talking to the fire department about how they're going to do a turnaround. They got into zoning bonus density on their project. Okay, so they went a ways on that on a residential for sale project. And it looks, you know, there's no elevations or anything like that. There's just a general lot diagram so they could do the fire department work and stuff like that. It looked good. It seemed responsible. But in the NAB, for you now and for this NAB, in Ward 1, when we heard this, when people showed up, there was a couple of particular concerns. One had to do with traffic in and out of
Right.
that, out of it coming out.
Yeah, we've had
And-
a number of traffic issues that have come up in connection with other projects, so it's something
And
we're trying to be very cautious.
specifically, it was a left turn on the Plumas, and the traffic study indicated that at a multifamily level, there wasn't enough traffic to necessitate a right turn only. But I don't know if that changes as they go into commercial, because of just reading.
Yeah, and that would be looked at, you know, what.
The other concerns had to do with the residential neighbors nearby. Although they are small multifamily, the multifamily project is going in is 30 some odd feet. The adjacent properties were single story. So even though it was a 2-story multifamily, by the time they got the crown on the building and all that stuff, it was, you know, almost twice as tall as the neighbors. But they did put buffering in and we're gonna design things in a responsible way, it appeared. And the neighbors were also concerned about lighting and noise. If somebody has a 2nd-story apartment and I'm next door and I'm in my 1-story bedroom, you know, things of that nature. So that's what we heard in the NAB when they came through on this parcel.
For residential.
Yeah, for residential,
Yeah.
18 months ago.
And looking much more site specific, where we're still at that master plan and zoning.
Right, so, yeah, so the purpose of my comment is to where it was before. Sounds like it owns his land, he can change what he wants to do with it, but looking at the other stuff. It's nice, it's good, it goes to the neighborhood, my opinion, and he worked well before and did take some of the comments into consideration. It would be nice if it would be better what he was doing here.
Yeah, and then, like I said, we're still kind of moving through that. I think Councilmember Dorf met George and has looked through his projects and
Yeah.
understands that he.
But, you know, I'm gonna say again, what Hal said, you need something to react to. Is it a commercial product? Is it residential? I mean, even at the grossest level, what are they planning?
Well, and it's hard. It's a zoning level. What it does is give us the opportunity to move through, and that's what an SPD is a zoning. So that's one of the challenges. But I understand that comment and we'll, you know, certainly reach out to me. We can kind of continue to go through this. Like I said, we're working with staff. We've got, you know, before we even get to the planning commission, so we
And
can-
when are you planning to go to the planning?
Like, that would probably be late January, early February at the earliest.
Okay, so maybe a
It's still pretty
request,
close.
yeah, maybe a request is to come back to the next NAB, which is in January 21, would be much closer to the planning commission. By then you would have a staff report, you would know what you're gonna go for. And it would be like part B of this. I think there's a member of the public who want another, did you fill out a card, ma'am?
I do not know.
So, but you will.
Diane Walls, I own the building that's at the back end of your 1 acre lot.
Okay, yeah.
It's a salon.
The salon, yes,
So I was concerned about what you were gonna do because it's gonna affect our property,
certainly.
like the fencing and all that. I always thought it was gonna be condominiums, townhouses. Now all of a sudden you're going commercial. I don't know what you mean by commercial. Are you talking office buildings? Are you talking about car repair shop? What kind of commercial are you gonna do? Because that can affect the quality.
Well, we've really tried to limit it to that neighborhood commercial, right? So those are gonna be your offices, they'd be personal services like you are, you know, it could be that, it could be a woodwork, we see an architecture office. So we're not looking any sort of auto repair, are not allowed, you've got bars are not allowed, you know, those things are not allowed automatically in that.
And all of that traffic's gonna have to funnel to the right of Plymouth, because you're not gonna be able, I'm assuming you're not gonna go out through my property.
No,
Go up Plymouth,
there's
so
no
they have to
intention.
just go on Plymouth.
Yeah.
And they can't turn left.
Well, they
Well,
can,
certainly, and I mean, and.
unless it's restricted.
Yeah.
The traffic is pretty backed up.
I know, I drive that way every single day. And, you know, I often stop at the light at Mount Rose.
Right.
And, it does back up.
Well, certainly, you know, from you, if we can create a little bit more buffer, if there's additional, like, those are things that, you know, this is a great time for us to talk and see how we can help limit the impacts that you potentially could see on your property.
Right. I have one more question.
So when you come in January, bring more deep, because part of what happens is, I know you're involved in your project and everything, but again, on a very basic level, we see a lot.
Mhm.
But we need a little more detail here so that we can share what we heard from residences, what we've seen in other projects, so that we can in fact be helpful to you. We
Certainly.
want every project that comes before us, we would like to have it succeed, because that succeeds for our neighborhood.
No, great input. I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes, I can
Is
see
Jeff
where you're coming
Foster the
from.
reviewer or what?
No, Jeff, it's actually Leah Brock, or, sorry, Leah, she remarried and now my name's.
Okay, but Leah,
Leah, so Leah will be doing that. Jeff's just sitting in, this evening, making, for staff, and making sure, the oversight on that.
So can Jeff tell us when he thinks the staff report will be ready?
That would all be determined by when we determine, we go to planning commission. So we're working with staff. What we want is a recommendation for staff, right? So we're gonna take in public comments, we're gonna take in their comments. Get it to a place that they feel comfortable for the document to go forward to planning commission. So the staff report is posted the Friday before the following, planning commission meeting. So we're looking, you know, probably hitting that early February meeting at this point. So you would see it prior to that meeting. Those group looks.
Well-
got another public comment.
You're probably aware that right alongside your lot, there's also another lot for sale.
Yeah,
That's saying that it's up for sale for townhouses. So that would not right up against yours, so I don't know if you told that.
well, I know that's is that the one, the parcel that the fire, there was a
Yes.
fire, yeah. And so that is currently up for sale, and what they choose to do with, I mean, that in the zoning, it's the MF 14 zoning, so what they decide to do is, if nothing's determined or has come forward yet, at this point, it's a parcel for sale, so we don't know how to quite address what's going on there.
And ma'am, could you say your name, just for the record? Since you
Oh,
spoke?
Diane Walls, WALC. I'll throw it on.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Great. Okay. So, any other questions right now? Yes, sorry.
Don Keats for the
Of
record.
course you have a question.
That's a good thing.
You're the one who reads all this stuff, so we rely on you.
So. How you not come here? My question is more about process, you know, we're always told. They're only coming for a zone change, which is disconnected from the project, right? So you're coming for a zone change, you presented all this information about why it's appropriate to put an SPD here, although, you know, Even if you don't agree with you, who knows, but so your work today is really to get an SPD, so you have to get the zone changed. So you're justifying using master plan,
We have to change the master plan also because of the
Yeah.
master, they have to be conforming.
that's what I mean, so you're gonna make those conform, so you can do, and that's all, as you keep saying, high level stuff. So, given that a project is not required in order to justify a zone change or a master plan amendment, what is it that you think you might be taking to planning commission? Might you have some more specificity, or just all the goals and policies of the master plan and Title 18 justified?
Well, I mean, we'll have the standards and requirements of how the development would have to happen and what, you know, the amount of parking, the setbacks, the heights, all the landscape required.
But without
access.
knowing what you're gonna build, or would you have decided what you?
Well, those standards will set that. So once something comes forward to build, it would have to meet those requirements and standards to be built. That would be reviewed through that either building or if it required additional entitlement review through a conditional use permit or something.
But, like,
it would have additional review.
My confusion is that the justifications for getting the zone change or master plan amendment really have nothing to do with what you're gonna build. So you get an SPD, which right off the bat, you made it go to 45 feet instead of 35 feet, which in my personal opinion is completely inappropriate next to all the residential and low profile office around there. So 45.
That's felt the same way and we can see that point.
Yeah, so I think that's kind, so, all right, so you're writing this SPD handbook, but again, that's not really what's going. It's not the question at hand for the planning commission, it's really, is neighborhood commercial appropriate at this location, and the answer is probably yes. But they're not reviewing your handbook for those details of what you're changing from code.
They should be. I mean, that's their,
Well, that'd
that's
be a
their
good
job as
thing.
planning commissioners. I hope they are.
So my proposal is that we stop talking today. We got a big picture. Thank you, Brooke. But bring the smaller picture next time, whenever you're gonna queue up for planning commission. You'll know what you're gonna build. The map can be a lot more targeted with there's analysis.
Okay,
Wonderful. Thank you all.
Okay,
well, thank you.
and that would go to our liaison. She has to follow this through. Yeah. Okay, Jennifer, you're the one who makes sure this happens.
It sounds like that.
Okay,
And I want to make sure Stacy's online. Did you have any questions, Stacy, before we leave this topic? I don't know, but okay.
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
all right. Okay, so we'll look forward to that at our next meeting. And then are we at B1 now?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Draft City of Reno Public Art Master Plan update for discussion only. Presentation by City of Reno Arts and Culture staff.
Just so you guys know, this clock is an hour off, so it's 7. And I think, just so we all know, and I think, did our time change on this room? Like we used to go to 8:30 last meeting, they said we had to be out by 8. I just want to make sure what the rules are now.
I believe 8.
Okay,
Because it's open.
My presentation should be fairly short, but I don't know what the interest and questions will be. So my name is Megan Berner. I'm the Arts and Culture Manager for the City of Reno, for the record. And I'm here to talk to you all today about the City of Reno's Public Art Master Plan update. I have a little slideshow here. Well, thank you. So the purpose of this update really is to address an outdated public art master plan that was adopted in 2002. So the current plan that we are operating under is over 20 years old, and it established a framework for the city to manage a public art program that residents have come to value and enjoy. And we found that out through public survey and interaction over the years. But our program has been operating under that framework with only modest adaptations since then. We do have a collection of over 260 works of art, some temporary, some permanent. Some of those are indoor pieces existing in a collection at City Hall and McKinley Arts and Culture Center. And many of them are outdoor pieces, including sculpture, murals, lots of community projects. So we've been working for over 20 years in the public art realm. And so this is really a plan that is updating, doing a comprehensive review of the program and making recommendations for moving forward, including a statement of how the program should impact the city, an outline of the work our public art program should focus on, and then proposals for adapting the administration and funding of the program. Next slide, please. So I'm gonna just give you a little bit of the process. This process was started at the beginning of this year by a consulting team that was led by Todd W. Bressi in association with Amina Cooper and Jessica Cusick. And he selected these folks because they had relevant information. One of them had run multiple city public art programs before in the West, one in Dallas, a couple in California, and then had also worked with departments of transportation and things like that. And then another consultant who'd worked with Percent for Art programs for airports and cities as well. The planning process involved a lot of research, public engagement, and analysis of the public art program's operation. So to gather public input early on in the stage, the first step was to organize a public survey. And we asked people who work in or live, who live or work in Reno to share their thoughts about public art. And we received nearly 600 responses to that public survey, which is pretty good for a city our size. And a lot of it was largely saying, we enjoy the public art. We'd like to see more involvement from local artists. So some of that's addressed in this plan. The team also circulated focus questionnaires to current and former members of the Reno Arts and Culture Commission and the Public Art Committee, are two public appointed bodies of citizens that help advise city council and the city on arts and culture. And then artists who have worked with our program and organizations that have also worked with our program. Then the team also reached directly out to Reno artists for input. And so during the course of the planning process for this, we have consulted with artists 4 times. We've done professional development workshops in conjunction with update information on the public art master plan update. So some of those were virtual, some were in person, and in each workshop, the team explored a different topic related to public art practice. And then also sought the artist input on the plan at whatever stage of development we were in. The team also conducted interviews with city officials, arts community, and civic leaders, toured a number of arts facilities in the city, and conducted a focus group with an art class at the University of Nevada, Reno. The research phase also involved review of city plans. So those were public art program budgets, plans, not just related to public art, but the city's, Re-envision Reno, the master plan, downtown action plan, a number of other plans around the city. And then RFQs and RFPs that we put out for public art calls, underlying ordinances and guidelines as well. And the team conducted 10 public art programs, contacted 10 public art programs elsewhere to get an idea of how they govern their programs and what they are doing. These were in Nevada and the Mountain West, and to get an idea for sort of benchmarking to compare. Throughout the process, we also worked with a team of internal stakeholders from the city departments that we work with in our arts and culture program, and in external stakeholders from other public agencies, nonprofits, and communities, the community in general. And these groups reviewed the plan's progress at various stages and the framework and plan recommendations and the draft plan. So we're at the draft plan stage, which is what we're here to talk to you all about and getting input on the draft. I'm going to go through some of the highlights of the plan. I'm not going to go through the whole thing in the interest of time. The whole thing is available on our website, and there's a survey that we're asking you to take. It's 69, the document is 69 pages long. There are lots of images in here too.
What's the website?
At renoculture.com, there's a QR code at the end of this too, and I'll reiterate it then, but at renoculture.com, you can find a link to the public art master plan update. So in general, they found that Reno residents enjoy public art in the city and would like to see something, to see more, particularly aspirational or iconic projects, like something big. And so one recommendation was to launch a signature project or initiative that captured the imagination of the entire city. There's some ideas in the plan around that. The public program, our program is generally respected by its collaborators, both within the city government and the arts community for the work that it does. And while we have this lively art scene, artists don't always see clear opportunities to connect with the public art program. So there's a lot in here actually about providing opportunities and mentorship and laddering opportunities for local artists so that they can start out with entry-level opportunities and then grow into larger commissions and things like that. While one of the findings they also had was that our program was founded on this percent for arts. We have a 2% for art ordinance that is tied to our capital improvement budget. So any capital improvement projects that happen trigger this 2% with some funds that are exempt. But the gist of it is that, but the flow of eligible capital projects is not super robust, I would say, until this last year where we're having things like the Moana Springs Aquatic Center and the new Public Safety Center, which are triggering that 2%. Generally, we don't have a lot of projects like that, so funding is modest. And so we've pivoted to do things like community-oriented projects, collaborating with community groups and applying for grants from the National Endowment for the Arts to help fund some of those projects. And so they're looking at, you know, funding and other ways to bring funding in for artwork. And then streamlining some of the governance processes accordingly. So updating that to match these new recommended guidelines and processes, and also to provide more flexibility and streamline the processes. Okay, next slide. So the plan is structured into these 6 sections. There's an introduction, which I basically gave to you, and then following that, who is Reno and what inspires us, and then the vision section that has the overall direction and goals, the where we are going, describes work that we should focus on based on that community input and feedback, and then the how we will get there section gives us a little bit of a roadmap for that. And then the proposed set of public art guidelines and policies, which is really the day-to-day, how we operate and manage our program. Next slide. This is that second section, who is Reno, what inspires us. This was taken directly from our public input survey, and I thought it would be interesting to share this because there's a lot of really great comments, I think, here that the consulting team really took into account as they were drafting these new recommendations. Next slide. Same thing. So there's some comments about our Signal Box program, which you all probably are familiar with. That's one of our more popular programs. We hire local artists for that. And it's artwork that gets spread out into neighborhoods and, you know, takes this utilitarian structure that already exists in the city landscape. Next slide. And then a slide on why is public art important to Reno. I would like to read you some of this just because it's important in talking about why we're even talking about public art and why it's, you know, a priority potentially for the city. So public art aligns with the city of Reno's vision and goals in the following ways. Public art makes Reno feel like home for residents as well as people who newly arrived to the city. It gives the city character. It's a way for us to express who we are, to capture history, culture, etc. And that leads into the next one. It tells Reno stories. So it brings these many narratives into view in public space. It can make people feel welcomed or as part of the community, right? Public art gives Reno a fresh and inspiring look, lifting up the spirit of the city, and it also supports economic development by offering new aspects of the city for residents and visitors to enjoy. And we have interesting studies around that too. So next slide. The goals that we strive for. So these are some of the goals that they suggest that each public art project should address each of these and focus on these as we go forward, creating projects for the city. To deliver public art projects that offer a multifaceted narrative of who Reno is. Engage communities in the development of projects, so more community engagement in what we are doing, you know, with the groups that are affected by the art, where it's going, etc. And strengthening the city's public art ecosystem. This is what I was talking about, building the capacity of our local artists. Next slide. Okay, and then there were the vision section included these big ideas, and these were, again, directly sourced from that public input survey and the feedback that was given there, and also some of our programs that are already successful in the community that the community wanted to see more of. So the light and sky one, people talked a lot about their connection to the environment here. And, you know, the sky and this big space, and that they missed, there was a light festival that happened right before the pandemic, and people, you know, wanted to see some of those things come back. So the light and sky was one of those big ideas. A river runs through it. Simultaneously to the drafting of this plan, the city was going through a vision plan for the Truckee River, which has been adopted. And so people also commented a lot on the river as one aspect of the city that was very important to them, and wanted to see more artwork potentially incorporated into that space. So that's that idea. The mural of giant size. So this was a suggestion to work with our planning department to cultivate a relationship with a developer, to encourage them to paint a mural on some of those distribution centers. So if you're driving around town, you'll see a lot of those. And I get comments all the time from folks who are like, why do we have so many of these blank faces, beige things in the city? And so one of the suggestions was to work on that. That would obviously be a public-private partnership. Likely no city funding would go into something like that, but to encourage developers to add art to their spaces. This one, the telling the story of the city, is directly related to our Art Signal Box program. They're suggesting a more curated approach potentially to that, to tell more of Reno stories through that, and also involve the community more in the selection of which boxes get painted each year, and help selecting the artists in that process as
So
well.
tell them just a moment,
Yeah.
the signal boxes are
Yeah.
boxes that are near traffic
Yeah,
lights?
they control the traffic lights, so you'll see them on the street corners where there are traffic lights. Those are the city-owned signal boxes. There are other utility boxes around town that belong to NV Energy and AT&T that are usually not on street corners and are in neighborhoods. Those we don't own. So you'll see these on the street corners where there are traffic lights.
And you're saying that rather than just have these random, like the artist picks what they want to paint, you're saying that you're getting a feel from the public that they'd like it more cohesive to tell specific stories?
So there was a lot of that,
In
of
part.
like, the artwork could be less random and tell more of the city story.
Gotcha.
So I think that's where that came from. Not necessarily that we would tell artists what to paint, but we could do theme suggestions and things like that. Or ask it to be more related
They
to.
get repainted, like, are they only there?
They do their temporary, just by nature of, painting on a surface. They usually last 2 to 6 years, and then they go and get repainted. And so artists know that up front, and it depends on vandalism or weather, things like that, where boxes are located. Yeah, they are temporary, so they change out. And then in the long run, they also were suggesting this land art component, which is something that's like a large urban artwork. One of the examples in the plan from another city was something integrated into a green belt. It was not, ostentatious. It was very integrated into the landscape, but gave something for people to interact with. So that was something I think, again, related to people's reaction to the surrounding natural area of the city. Next slide. Okay, so that is my quick overview. If you would like to read it more in detail, we would encourage you to. If you scan this QR code, it says December 15th. I didn't update that. Ignore that date. It'll say that on the survey too. We are still accepting feedback on this. We would very much, if you would like to read the plan and give us feedback, we would very much appreciate it. If you go to renoculture.com, there's a tab on the left side that will say Public Art Master Plan Update, and you can click on that and also find the draft master plan and the link to the survey there. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Where does this, Donna Keats for the record, how does this move forward?
Yeah, okay, great question. I forgot that part. So after we get public input on this draft, The consultants will take all of that feedback, modify the draft plan, and then we will submit a final version of it to the Arts and Culture Commission and the Public Art Committee for their recommendation for council to adopt. Ultimately, it will go to council. And if they choose to adopt it, it will become our new policies and guidelines for our public art program.
Can you talk,
Can you say your name?
I'm sorry, Bill Shrimp. I'm glad to hear, it sounds like you're getting more stable funding, which is a good thing, sounds like. How much funding are you getting?
Yeah, so we already have fairly stable funding. The majority of our funding for our public art comes from room tax. So it's not from citizen taxes, it's room tax generated, and that, a lot of that funding, part of that goes to public art, part of it goes to our, granting programs that we do through our arts nonprofits. And then, it runs like our gallery spaces, which is part of our public art program. And then we get an allocation every year for general public art based on the city's capital improvement budget. That is usually $40,000 to $80,000 a year. Which is, yeah, it's not very much. Public art projects generally, you know, for some of the larger projects that get done like in roundabouts, $100,000 to $150,000 budget for those. So we supplement that with grants from the National Endowment for the Arts and multi-year, you know, funding, so saving funding from one year to move into the next for those projects. That funding also funds our signal box program and some of our annual programs that we do. And then once in a while, like I said, we get these big 2% site-specific injections from big capital improvement
So
projects.
for
like
example,
Moana.
Moana,
Yeah.
you're gonna have like $500,000
Mhm.
in public art and another 250 to like take care of it into the future. That's $500,000 and there's 5 separate projects in and around the Moana pool, some in, some outside,
Mhm.
that will be done over a period of time. So as she says, it doesn't come around much, but it comes around.
Mhm.
No, and I think it's a good thing, it's just. Seems like it's hard to plan a big art installation with 100K a year.
Yeah, and some, we do, in this plan, it really outlines some of the partnerships that we have with other agencies. Outside of the city, one being the Transportation Commission, RTC. They have recently started putting in infrastructure for public art into their street projects, which has been really helpful, because that is a large cost. And so they will build that into their projects. We've had them do that in the Midtown roundabout, on Audi and Silverado, and the Wells Sutro project that they were working on. Public art will be going in next month there, and they built the foundations for those pieces, and then the same for the roundabout in North Valleys on Sky Vista, that we will also have artwork coming next year into that space. So there are ways for us to try to find those kind of partnerships that help. That.
Thank you. You both are good work.
Patrick Fisher for the record, is there any, as the University of Nevada encroaches on downtown Reno, is there any art projects that can be a co-opted with the university in the city? A chance for the university maybe to fund some art projects?
Yeah, I think we would absolutely be open to that. The subject has not come up yet, and they are a separate sort of entity and space. We wouldn't do anything on their,
Change the street.
on
Change
their.
what?
Change the street name.
Yeah,
That was. So yeah, that is something, you know, that we absolutely be willing to explore.
Well, we know where there's an acre someplace off Loomis that they're looking for ideas. Yeah, you know, I think one of the ways that this works when it works in other cities is that as the city grows and builds, you build the art as you go along with it. So to whatever degree, you know, the question gets put on the paperwork for a developer to say, oh, we're gonna do this, apartment building complex. And I mean, if there's just a question on it that says, by the way, do you intend to integrate art into your project? Just to remind people that this is something you can do. You can make lots of friends by doing it. And you can probably enhance your project at that point. You know, I think we made a mistake when art is just separate. And you've been saying it this whole time, I'm not telling you anything, but you know, the most that we can do to integrate art with everything else that we do, then the more it becomes basic to our, you know, our cultural identity.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, in addition to that, Megan mentioned in passing the studies that they've done on the economic growth that art brings. And that it spins off and I mean, I don't recall the number and I don't want to say, but it was a huge multiplier.
Almost 400% return on investment.
I'm sorry, what?
It's almost 400% return on investment. This is just studying the nonprofit art sector and events. This doesn't even have to do with public art. That's a lot harder to track, but the granting funding that we give out has a 400% return on investment in revenues that come back to this the city and the county.
So we've commissioned several studies to understand the economic impact of the art. And the events.
Yeah.
So it's been
The
amazing.
summers are, yeah. But that was one of the recommendations to address what you said. There's a full section having to do with our partnership with our planning department, who we do work with on occasion, but they have some zoning code for certain areas of the city that require pedestrian amenities, and art can be part of that. And so I think for developers, demystifying that process and giving, you know,
Yeah.
a handbook even that says, here's how you could do this. And so our planning department's very open to this and
Yeah.
adjusting it to.
Yeah, I mean, you know. Yes,
So there's more private funding. that comes.
Sure.
Dave Titzel for the record. I love your idea about painting murals on those warehouses along the freeway. Have you guys started talking to anybody yet? And if so, what's the feedback been, or is
We
it
have
just a
not
dream yet?
started that process yet, since this is not officially adopted yet, but one of our planners in the planning department, that was one of our focus groups, was very excited about this idea. So I don't know, maybe she's already approached somebody. I have no idea.
Well, and if you could turn back to your very first page of the PowerPoint, I thought, you know, they asked, you were talking about funding, and I thought this was a great moment to talk about how you put the funding together. It's the very first.
Oh, this
one.
one with the,
yeah, I mean, that's a good example. You know,
So, I mean, do you recall what the total cost was?
$70,000.
Okay, and then I contributed 20,000 of my council funds
Yeah.
to this project. And then the other 50, I think you got from a grant.
No,
All
that
of it?
was all from our general public art fund,
Okay.
because we had rolled over some from past
So,
years, so.
you know, that's how it happens, right? We cobbled together enough funding, and the artist coincidentally happened to be from Truckee.
Oh.
And it was a national call, and I think you had like 50 artists
We had quite a few, yeah, it might have been more.
apply. And it was all narrowed down, and nobody knew that this artist particularly was from Truckee, but that's.
Yeah.
It ended up being.
and it came together in a very open space. So you
Yeah.
see it.
That's great, that-
Yeah, well, it was not finished here, but
Yeah.
it was underway. You see the crane. But yeah, it looks way better than the pink, right? That was on there for the previous 50 years.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay.
They're gonna paint the Museum of Modern Art, you know, in black.
That's not anything
I
else.
know. Thank you so much, Megan.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, and please, if you have time, glance through this and give us your feedback, we'd appreciate it.
Sure,
Thank you.
absolutely. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right. We do, board commission committee reports. Next,
This is an opportunity for,
Yeah.
for anybody to say anything.
so any thoughts, any ideas, anything that you've seen that impressed you and you thought you should bring it to the NAB? I mean, this would be a good time to do it. Yeah, it's good, you know, here's the thing, if we're in the NAB. All right, we all have our lives and everything.
Yeah,
But if we're on our NAB and we say to ourselves, part of my job is to have my eyes open
right.
as I go through the city.
I'm looking for your.
If I, yeah, if I see something that I think we ought to be talking or encouraging or whatever, you know, that's what we can do. That's something we can do outside of the meeting,
Right.
just to be aware of.
Well, I build a special relationship with all of you. I get to know you. I see you every month. It's different. Most other people call me for one to solve a problem, right?
Right.
Cars parked in front of my house. There's somebody camping. There's speeders, whatever it is, it's a one-off, each individual. But I see you guys, you know, month in, month out. I respect your opinion and I look forward to hearing it so that we can make the city better.
Right. Yeah.
I guess I'd like to make a comment. I love learning things like I did today, that the city is.
About the taxes.
We can't control our own destiny,
Right.
and,
It's so frustrating.
that seems to me to be the root of a lot of problems. So I guess, you know, just looking at it, I would assume that we either, you know, lobby the legislature, I mean, we have to change the law, right?
Right.
So is this something that the city goes with? I assume you got
We
four
have-
draft requests
So we have
and
two
stuff
bill,
like
we
this.
have two bill draft requests each session, so every other year. We have a charter committee, which helps us evaluate our charter and also makes recommendations for changes to the laws. Any citizen, any resident could make a recommendation that we take up. This year, we decided to submit no bills. Zero. We got two opportunities. And it's like the city didn't want to use its capital because we've had very little success. And the time I've been on here, we've had one bill, I believe one bill in 10 years, that they changed our charter to go to the 6 wards. I mean, and we put that forward and that's what they did, but we put forward on how to improve our recreation, planning, maintenance of parks, several options, how to improve our fire service.
I think the city should use it, all of its capital to say, we want to be able to determine our own destiny. Don't pick and choose these little piddly things. Go after the whole hog and say, by God,
Yeah.
we believe in democracy and we
Yeah.
want it to start right here in
Yeah.
City Arena.
Well, if you want, I mean, this part of the meeting is about future agenda items, I think.
Sure.
If
Absolutely.
you wanted, we could bring in an expert to talk about home rule and Dillon's rule. Well, how come it was adopted this way? Cause it's always important to know how we got here. How it helps us, how it hurts us. And, you know, just because part of being on the NAP is learning more in detail, you know, you can go to the Reno Constituents Institute, RCI, which is open now, I think, for applications.
Yeah, I applied for that. Do you know when you?
I don't know.
get
Do you know when?
notified?
I do not.
Does Jenica know? She's gonna look it up. But anyway, that gives you like a 10-week course of different parts of the city, but they don't really get into like philosophy or, you know, depreciation or where our money comes from. They do it at a very broad level because they're covering everything about the city. But you're sitting here month after month and you could certainly request, I'd like our city economist to talk to us about C-tax and
Yeah.
depreciation, which
I did put in last month, I put in that very request.
you could ask for, we'd like a little 101 on Dillon's rule versus home rule. What's up with that? Why are we this way? How, you know, what's good or bad? How do we? change it?
Another future agenda item I would like is, you know, these developers come in and they talk about all these different, all the zoning. I would like to know, give broad overview in general, what different zonings.
So a
need
101 on
and-
zone.
A
So that's an
101,
important one.
a
right?
101 on zoning, and then also, what is the city's vision, just an overview, I know you have a document and all that stuff, but if somebody could explain to me, like, where did we ever decide Reno wants to go in this direction and look like this 5 years from now and 10 years from now?
Yeah.
I would love that explained to me. as
Yeah,
well.
it's a great point, and I've heard a lot of frustration and. We have a general thing, right? We care about affordable housing, we're supporting infill, like these kind of projects. But beyond that,
That's down in the weeds. I'm talking.
no, but I
big
mean,
picture.
that is not really in the weeds. That's the big picture, frankly. I mean, but there's a master plan and I often get frustrated because there's many things in the master plan. For example, it says in many places, take care of your animals. But when it comes to reviewing these projects, they're not worried about our animals. And I've said, why are we leaving? That's why sometimes I vote no on these projects, because there's like 7 different parts of the master plan that talk about providing animal pathways, you know, to water, to food. I mean, we're building, so we're interrupting their life. Well, what are we doing to offset it or mitigate it, right? And that's what I end up like, why are we not paying attention to some of this stuff? The trees are threaded throughout the entire master plan. And yet we still don't have, after 10 years of me pushing, a new tree ordinance. Now, Jackie is working on it. So I do expect we're gonna have one in the next 2 years. I do. She may get super busy being the manager now instead of the assistant city manager. But still at the interim city manager, she took this on. I said, I'm real frustrated. I'm leaving council and we have no tree ordinance. So what are we doing? So these are big picture things, they are. And I often feel that, Jeff is not on anymore, but I often feel like the planning staff just look at some real basic stuff and they don't look at some of that. You know, how do I encourage them to take a step out to address these other master plan things? And I will tell you, I'm sure I heard it from most of you, I was a little frustrated with the presentation today because you need to react to something. You're not planning their project for them.
Right.
You're responding to their project and you're saying what's good and bad about it.
I don't think he was serious about it. He wanted the feedback to be, oh, just do what you want. Well,
I'm not sure what he wanted, but I think in requesting a return to the NAB with more detail, once you know, come back and talk to us.
Yeah,
Okay?
it's like know the process. I mean, and I absolutely agree with you. There are things like zoning and things. We talk about all the time. You put the time in. You really put the time in. When I hear you talking about things, I know you really put the time in, but there's a lot of this stuff and you have background in it. There's a lot of this stuff. It's like when you're in committees and boards and things, a lot of times they have well, we're gonna do our training session for the year kind of thing. I'm not saying we necessarily should have.
Well, we, in the past, and this is something to take back to Jenica and others, which is the NAB has had training sessions before
Yeah,
on open meeting law, but we're beyond that. I mean, a
Yeah.
101 on that's fine, but we don't want to spend 2 hours on that.
no,
What they want to do is have a better understanding of the planning process, because they are being asked to give thoughtful opinion that the planning commission would pay attention to. And the best person to ask for this would be probably Angela Fuson.
Yeah.
So,
and we could invite other members of other NABs to
absolutely,
come at the same time if we're doing that kind of a
they
presentation.
could have a central one even at downtown at City Hall.
Yeah.
I mean, versus at the front end of our meeting, but what I find is when they do that, people don't come. Yeah,
The disconnect between getting a project approved and actually having to have a project,
and having what?
and actually having to have a project.
Yeah.
Is, you don't have to have a project to get a zone change. We've been fighting this thing for 20 years about why would we give you a zone change if we don't know what you want to build? Oh, well, you're not allowed to.
They're
ask
supposed to
about that.
bring the thing with the master plan change, that's encouraged, especially if
But
you're
yeah, but
doing,
it's not required.
No.
I mean, you don't have to have one.
No.
Just say, this is a perfect, like you did tonight, this is a perfect spot for neighborhood commercial. And I know we'll do an SPD, so we can go 45-foot high.
exactly, we
55-foot high.
deduced that.
So it's like, no, you don't get, but it's not required. It's like the tenant, so
Yeah.
this one that got approved, it had a tentative map approved last year. And it was, more than MF 14, but only 3 more.
Yeah,
Right? And
sound like a density bonus
Yeah.
thing.
so they did that. They had to bring in their thing. Well, now they don't need a tentative map. So they don't have to tell you what they're gonna build.
But at an SPD, they do. This is where I'm trying to say, Brooke, you picked it to be convenient to you to change from the restrictions of neighborhood commercial. You want to go higher, but you're also throwing in some sustainability, but you're not telling us what that is.
Right.
But the other side of doing SPD is they're supposed to narrow down. It's supposed to be more specific than any of these other planning processes and tell you what they're actually gonna build. So that is the beauty of it. You know what Ken Crater went through. He said how high, what kind, what style. It had to integrate with the neighborhood.
Yes.
This was 5 acres, this is 1.
We need to acknowledge what we are right now.
What are,
Because the industrial park, we're no longer a small town.
well, this has been acknowledged. So I just
Yeah.
went to a conference on, I
Yeah.
maybe should have mentioned, on anti-Semitism last week. Went to LA with 200 mayors from all over the country. What I was interested in is many of the mayors were from towns. These were the major town sizes. If I asked somebody, how big is your town? 2,500. 30,000 was the next tranche. And then you have your big city mayors and people, when I said we're almost 300,000, they were like. And everybody acknowledges that 300,000, which we're actually like about 275 maybe, is a mid-sized town now.
Yeah.
We're a mid-sized town.
Yeah.
And so we used to be part of that small town stuff and we were the biggest little small town, but now we are a mid-sized town.
Yeah.
And so we've changed things. And the mayor definitely acknowledges that we talk about it quite a bit at council.
Good.
Maybe not right here.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we need to be thinking.
We do.
We really need to be thinking.
Well, and this is why, and I'm just reopening my council liaison report for a minute. One of the things that came up at council last meeting was a sign ordinance. And in downtown Reno, it's called something like mixed something and gaming overlay. It has these various overlays of what it is. But here's the bottom line. Gaming can have as many signs as they want. There's no limit. They can be as tall as they want. I think the limit's 100 feet. But everybody in that district, the Starbucks is down there, it could also have a 100-foot sign. The McDonald's down there, also a 100-foot sign. The pawn shop, also a 100-foot sign. It's because of the zoning that it has for these kind of signs. Well, they asked me, and I was the only one who spoke up really at the last meeting in a strong voice, and I said, look, they kept saying, this is what we were, and we want to continue it, and I said,
Yeah.
why? There was
Yeah.
no rationale. I have no understanding of why the city mothers and fathers of 40 years ago decided that every single building in downtown Reno could have unlimited sign or 100-foot sign. So I said, I don't like the just because answer.
Yeah.
No, I said, how about no? Gaming, yes, you could have many signs, as big as signs, go to 100 feet, whatever. But do we really want, we're changing, we're a progressive city, we want to have a different kind of downtown, it's not all gaming anymore. So what should be the rules? So as far as I think they heard me, no one else really opined, and I just said, I've been here 10 years, I've been through the sign wars. We had spent 3 years on signs. Height, brightness, you can't tell people what they can have on their sign, that's free speech.
Right.
But you can lay out the parameters of the signs. And so I said, here's what I would like, gaming all day long, all these others, no, they need to follow the regular sign code. And nobody has really not followed the regular sign code, but the option is there to do it. And so I think they're changing their Title 18 because of what I said, I just heard it today earlier, I'm
So
confirming.
nobody else
tomorrow.
had to speak, Naomi, because you did such a fantastic job. when
You were listening?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm slopping on.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
They said I was very clear, very specific.
And very forceful. I've done this in the last, however many times you said, we've done this, we've been through this, we don't need to do this again, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you need to talk.
I met with the sign folks today and they said, Naomi, we actually have a name for you. I'm like, what? And they go, we call you no Naomi. And I said, what? I'm always for yes. So I didn't know where this no came in. They said it was based on something I said 6 years ago,
Right.
which was, the citizens voted and they voted to do away with billboards. But we were still discussing it at council endlessly. And I said, okay, how about this? No means no.
Yeah.
The residents already voted by large margins. They did not want these billboards. And there was something like 50, 60 billboards in a bank that they could like store them there and pull back out. But they had expiration dates and now there's only 6. So the expiration dates ran. So now there can only be 6 more billboards built. And all of this goes back 20 years. The residents voted and they said, this is the kind of town we want.
Yeah.
We don't want gaudy signs. We don't want billboards everywhere.
Now
One
we're
of the
putting it out.
biggest billboards that just came down, if you remember where Junkie was on South Virginia, did you guys know that old building right near the roundabout? There was a giant billboard over this forever. And it's been taken down. New owners, they decided, no, that's not our style. That came down, it's gone. So we have effectuated a change about what we want our city to look like. It was in many, many meetings at city council, many. But anyway, because of that, they told me today, I'd like frankly forgotten. And they said, well, Naomi, you're the no means no girl. I said, okay, well, we gotta listen to our residents. That's why we're elected, right? They already voted and,
Very happy with what you did at council.
yeah, okay, good. Thank you. All right, well, I know
Are
we
you
gotta
saying
wrap
we
these
should,
up.
we should become the no nab no?
No, no, no. No means no, but yes means yes, and I'm always trying to get to yes, frankly.
Right.
So anyway, I know we should wrap up. I know Stacy's on from Florida. We should be respectful of that, and she's 3 hours, so in her world, it is 10:30 at night. Thank you, Stacy. I just wanted,
Wait, are you here for a public comment? Or anything else? No.
I just came.
I just wanted to thank Stacy while she's on, and I had a moment, because without her, we wouldn't have had a forum.
Yeah.
And she's 3 hours ahead, so.
You're
it's a big-
welcome.
But yeah.
What,
Thank
Stacy?
you. I just said you're welcome.
Yeah, well, it was important.
All right.
Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, well, I think that's it. I mean, I, you know. What you know, cities need to be evolutionary bodies. That's the thing.
Right.
And if we can create an evolutionary where people say, oh, one of the things I'm supposed to be doing when I'm doing this is trying to come up with new ideas. And if you get that to be the mindset.
Yeah.
Then maybe we can have the city we really want to have in 20 years.
Well, and Pierce is, and I think, you know, others are really about adding to our bike lanes. You know, and our tree canopy, and, you know, others have, you know, other visions, and so we just have to keep pushing forward on these things.
Absolutely. All right, anything
Yes.
else we have to do?
I will,
Okay,
speak about public comment.
Oh, that's
Comments heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the NAB's agenda. The NAB may not take action upon any matter not agendized on today's agenda. When you are called on for public comment, please state your name for the record and begin speaking. The timer will begin when you say your name and you will be afforded 3 minutes. If you're an attendee in the Zoom meeting and would like to make public comment, please raise your hand at this time. No one?
Anyone in the room?
If you're attendee, yep.
No? So.
okay, and then,
Not
and
public.
are there any projects, and I know you really sort of just gotten on board, but are there any projects or things that we need to, that you're involved with now that, that we need to know about, you know,
Well,
clean up
here's one.
things or whatever,
We're
you know?
about to get a
Not
new
yet.
liaison.
Okay,
Could you introduce yourself?
Yes, I would love to. Hello, everyone. It's
Okay.
my pleasure sitting in with you all. My name is Juliana and I'm going to be the community liaison for
Okay.
sports. So I am in the training process and
Okay.
hitting the ground running, learning as much as I can, and hopefully be able to support you all.
okay.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Nice to see you here.
Did you say your full name again?
Yes, I'm Juliana McManus. Oh,
McManus.
no, I'm sorry, Hendricks. I recently got married.
Oh.
I was, yeah.
And where were you before?
I was at the Nevada Assembly. I worked for 6 years at the legislature on the assembly side.
You could probably give us
Oh.
insight on some of the stuff we were talking about.
I know, it's like, yeah, it's making my brain go like marrying those two worlds.
Right? Yeah.
All right, something more to look forward to.
Yeah.
All right, new ideas, everything. Okay, is that all we got at this point?
Yes.
I
All right,
move that we adjourn the meeting.
well, I was going to say, does somebody have a motion to adjourn?
I'll second Patrick Fisher for the record.
Okay, and we got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. By the way,
Thank you, Stacy.
we
Happy
made him
holidays.
think tonight, okay? We did our
Wait,
job
let's
tonight.
hear it. We'll see you guys that are on Zoom.
All right.
We're gonna close out.